welcome back to Rambling Roxy's Adventures in Writing. Sorry, little bit of time between episodes. I've been busy teaching a writing class to some middle schoolers here in the local community, and I took some time off to kind of focus on that. But we're going to continue on with some writing lessons that you can do at home as well. These are ones that I used in my writing author class as well. Today we're going to focus on setting, specifically setting the scene. Personally, I think it's one of the most important things of your story, and you think about where you want it to happen. But first of all, let's figure out what is setting. So from a literary perspective, so when you're reading a book, you need to understand what setting is too. Setting is the location and time frame in which the narrative takes place. Narrative is like a story. So setting is like the where, when, that a story takes place. This includes time of day, season, the day of the week, the year. All of these kinds of setting factors impact your characters, such as a kid living during World War II is going to have a much different experience in France than a kid living in 2018 or even 2020 in France, such as in World War II, they would have planes and there's bombs and all kinds. Maybe they're suffering from all kinds of, food rationing, seeing parts of their city bombed out. There's just all kinds of things that they're going to see that you're not going to see today because there's not a war going on in France. But in 2020, things looked a lot different than how they did previously and then how they look now. So making sure to set your researching where your setting is really important, and choosing that time to make sure you're getting that flow with your story. So it's important to do some research if your setting is different than your own setting, because you don't always know all the factors contributing to that. If you're doing something set in the past, you should probably look up some events going on there. You don't want to be having something happen on a specific day, and it just so happens to be the same day that 9/11 is going on, and this kid has no idea about 9/11 and this isn't involved in his life at all in your story. Almost everyone in America knew what was happening on 9/11, saw it on the news, and it impacted them in some way. So if you're writing about something on a specific date or time and you aren't thinking about doing research into the events that happened on those days, you're going to sell yourself short and your story short and make your readers kind of wonder if your story makes sense. I mean, if you're writing something fantasy, obviously you don't have to do that. You're making your own events and world and everything. But if you're writing about something that could have happened, you want to make sure to do some research. You also want to do some research on other things. So you want to make sure you get the traditions, the climate, society norms, and other factors correct when you're doing your writing process. We have Google now, so you can go on and Google and figure out all these things, and it's really easy. So everyone was talking, just like how everyone was talking about the water bottle and the Starbucks cup left in the scenes of Game of Thrones, that we may have seen it or may not, but this movie was set way back, 300-400 years ago. They didn't have water bottles or Starbucks cup, but when they were watching the movie, someone accidentally left it on set. And everyone was talking about you guys didn't really do a good job. You spent billions of dollars producing this movie and you forgot the Starbucks cup, right? So you want to make sure that that's not going on in your story. You don't want to write about the characters drinking Starbucks when it's 1800s and there was no Starbucks. And most likely they didn't have coffee at all because it was difficult to import all the way out west. Maybe, but it was a special occasion. So you don't want to leave that as a mistake in your writing. That's also an important part of the editing process. So just like it's important to make sure that you have your commas and capital letters and everything, it's just as important to set the scene and kind of make sure this is right. Sometimes making a mind map of your setting can be helpful as well. Here's one that I did for my book, Kai's Secret here. It's set on a Navajo Indian reservation. Specifically on an archaeology dig site. So there's going to be specific things that occur there. There's things that I researched and looked up for the book while I was doing that. One of the things I did right off the bat to kind of help visualize things for me is I went ahead and I researched the climate and the area. So Google is a great place. Google Images kind of can help you get ideas when you're describing the scenes around you. So I knew it was in a desert. I looked at the kind of weather that they had, the lack of rain, the rocks, the colors, the cactus, other vegetation. So I made sure to get that stuff right, so I'm not adding in descriptions that don't make sense. Like it's snowing, or there's like a tropical hurricane. There would be no tropical hurricane in New Mexico. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind. I also researched Navajo culture, their clothing, food. I also did a little bit of research into code talkers, because I added that into my book during her grandfather is a code talker from World War II, and kind of adds that in. So I made sure to do some research on that as well, and not just make up information. I also put it in the present day. So phones and the internet were used throughout my book, and there was texting and stuff between people, because that's what people do now. They text when they're trying to communicate. So I wanted to make sure that was relevant. Since it was set on an archaeology dig, I also made sure, even though I studied archaeology and kind of consider myself, an amateur archaeologist, because I did do that as part of my studies, I wanted to make sure that I also made sure to get some of the stuff correct. So I researched some of the archaeological tools and methods that would be used on those types of dig sites as well. I kind of drew on some of my own experiences when I've been on dig sites as well, from some of my memories. So maybe that might help you as well. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll put up some mind maps at the end for you guys to kind of get some ideas on how you can map out the scene and the setting of your story. So thanks for setting the scene with me.